Hi, my name is Demeter. I'm an indie filmmaker for 25 years. I made several short films and a bunch of music videos, and right now I'm actually close to releasing my very first feature film titled Dreamland Awaits, which is an art house horror film. In this video I compiled a bunch of mistakes that I made over my career, and these cost me a lot of money, time, energy, and actually some of the projects that I have actually worked on. So if you're an aspiring or indie filmmaker, you might find this useful so you don't make the same mistakes as I did. Focusing too much on style over substance. In 2012 I finished an animated short titled Nothing. It was like 7 or 8 minutes long, and I worked on it for almost 4 or 5 years. Not full time of course, but it took a lot of time to finish it. And by the time I got to the end point, basically my animation style and the way I wanted to create things changed drastically, and that can be seen in the animation itself. So that was one big problem with it, that it took too long to make, and it got influenced by how I as an artist changed over the years. The other problem was that I was focusing too much on the style itself. I wanted to make a rotoscope animation because I thought it looked cool. It was a lot of work, and in the end it looks good, but I didn't focus on the story, I didn't focus on the characters, and I didn't focus on any kind of emotional impact. And in the end it might look interesting, but if it doesn't have like a solid story and emotional hook that the audience can connect to, then it's not going to work no matter how good it looks. So that was a big lesson that I learned, that you know, first story and the characters and the emotions are the most important thing, and after that you can start developing your visual style and how it will look and everything else. Letting outside influence dictate your work. And by that I mean, if you find a good producer or anybody, actually maybe just a friend who wants to help you, support you and invest in your film, for sure they're going to have their own ideas about what they want to do or how they want to do it. I'm not saying that it's impossible to work with somebody like that. I'm just saying that you have to be on the same page. You have to think in the same way, otherwise you're going to have a lot of conflicts, and it's not going to be anybody's work in the end. It's just going to be a mishmash of all different kinds of visions and ideas. And a lot of times you can see that in films, that when it feels like, you know, it was made by a different person, the first or second half of the film or whatever, you know, it's probably there was some very strong personalities in the background clashing with visions and ideas, and they just couldn't find the same page to be on the same page. So the other dangerous thing is if your creative partner or producer or investor or whatever has a very unstable vision, which means that they might change what they want to see, or what they want to do even on a daily basis. That they just, you know, have an interesting dream, or they see an interesting film and they are immediately inspired by it and they want to implement it into the project that you're working on right now, which is never a good thing, because like I'm not saying that outside influences cannot be good, but they have to fit a certain vision, they have to fit the original basic idea, otherwise they're just going to make your film look weird and convoluted and just basically not coherent at all. Working on something you don't care about. There are filmmakers out there who went to film school and have like a huge amount of tricks up their sleeves, which means that basically they can tackle most genres and most subjects, and they have a solution to showing emotions, comedy, you know, whatever. They have a trick up their sleeves and they can use it to make a film. Indie filmmakers are mostly not like that. We haven't learned in film school, we haven't learned the trade of filmmaking in a traditional way. We picked up certain things because we like certain things, and that made us who we are, right? So you have to be passionate about the genre, the style, and even the subject of your film, because that's going to shine through the film itself, and the audience is going to notice if you don't really care about your subject. If a producer gets in touch with you, say that they want to make a film about horse riding, even if the deal seems extremely good, they have the budget and everything, you really have to think about, like, is it really something that I'm passionate about? Is there really something that I can get deep into it and not just show it in a shallow way or basically just a cliche way? You know, what else can I put into it which will make it mine or which will make it interesting? So you have to be very careful about it, because the audience will notice it. You can feel it or see it in a movie if the director is not passionate enough about the subject that he's working on or he made a movie about. So I think you have to be careful and selective what kind of projects you take on if it's from somebody else. Overcomplicating the script. I made a lot of these mistakes early on when I started to write scripts for my own films. Like, I wanted to make a really complex and interesting story with a lot of characters or a lot of plots or whatever to make it really interesting, because I enjoyed those kind of films. But then when somebody asked me, what kind of movie are you making? I started to explain, but I realized that I need to really explain a background and a lot of things in order to be able to explain that just the basic plot of the film. You have to start with something simple, something like a sentence or maybe a couple of sentences long, which can be understood by anybody. And if you have a strong start, a strong hook that can be interesting for basically your aunt or your friend's friend or whoever, then you have something interesting there, and then people will want to see your film, and then they will put in the effort to understand your film in a deeper level, to see the layers in there and stuff like that. But don't start with that. You have to hook them with something simple. So if you cannot even explain your story to yourself with one or two sentences, you have a problem. You have to try to boil it down to some very core simple ingredients, and if those work, then you can start adding layers to it and you can start adding depth to your film. But don't start with the complex part. Start with something simple and build upon it, and it's just going to work out better. Working with the wrong people. I had a short film around 10 or 15 years ago which I was really passionate about, and I found a DOP for the short film, and he was a really talented guy and he made amazing images. But the thing was that we were not on the same page in a creative, on a vision kind of way, and I was basically just blindsided by this by his talent, and I didn't really bother to find the same kind of page in a creative way. When we were finished on the second day, when we were finished with the shooting, I already knew that, we don't have the film, because like a lot of things are missing what I wanted to have, but I couldn't have, because he had his own ideas, how he wanted to do certain compositions, images and stuff like that. But I respect that kind of work, and I respect his work because he was very talented. But in the end, the film didn't work out, and it would have needed another day or two of shooting. And since it was a self-funded film, I made it from my own pocket. I had to just basically stop because I didn't want to spend twice as much money on it, and in the hopes that it's going to fix it. I just rather moved on to the next project and basically try to learn from it, that you have to be on the same page in a creative way with anybody that you're working with, especially with your DOP, but like anybody who's any kind of creative partner on the film. You have to be on the same page with them. You have to have these kind of conversations. You have to send them films or scenes from films, or even just images or whatever, so they understand what your creative vision is, what you want to see in the end in the film, and so they can work with you and help you bring that to life. Not having enough control over a project. And I don't mean creative control. The best is, of course, having 100% creative control. And in indie films, I think that can be achieved a lot of times, especially if they are self-funded or crowdfunded or whatever. But I mean the financing part. Like, you're invited into a project, maybe not as a director, but like a VFX artist or whatever kind of role you're taking on at the moment. You have to understand, you have to know something about the background as well. Who's going to finance it? How much is going to cost? What is the plan with the film? How they're going to release it? Any of those questions are legit questions if you're willing to put in the time and effort to work on a film, and you put in and you're willing to put your name on the end credits of that film. You have to know these kind of things, because I was sucked into a few of these projects as a director back in the day, like 15-20 years ago, and they all seemed legit because they were like big talking producer guys and telling me like we are going to have like an international co-production and stuff like that, and everything fell through, and months of my life went into it, and I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't ask any kind of questions. I was just going with the flow because I was like 25 years old, and I was like thinking, yes, I made it, I'm going to be a film director, I'm going to do this and that. and I basically went with it. So what I'm saying is basically it's never a bad thing to have questions. If you're not sure about something, ask about it. If they can't answer you straight, there might be something in the background that they're not telling you, or they are just full of shit. So you have to be careful. You have to be careful what your kind of projects and what kind of people you get yourself involved with. Working for free without thinking it through. I mean, we've all been there, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing to work for free. I mean, in the indie scene, we have to help each other, right? Indie filmmakers are a community, and I myself helped out a lot of times with different kind of productions. Sometimes it was just main titles or color grading or some VFX, sometimes a poster or something like that. And I'm happy to help out if I see a potential in that kind of project. But you have to be very clear in you know what you're giving and what you're expecting from that project. If it's just a credit, or if it's revenue share, or if it's any other kind of way of compensation. And you really have to ask yourself, is it worth it for your career? Because any time that you spend on working on somebody else's dream for free, especially, it's basically time that you could have spent on working on your own project, your own script, your own film, or your own showreel, or whatever, just putting yourself out there to the world to see. So you have to be selective, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing to work for free, but you know, try to pick the right projects for you, and try to pick the right people that you think you can trust, and they are not going to basically use you or not respect your work enough. So that's very important. Be selective with these things as well. And the last one is not having proper contracts and paperwork done. And it's especially interesting or important when you have a feature film and you want it to get into distribution, right? Because then you need to have paperwork of everything, from all the talent, artists working on it, actors working on it, the composer, and you know, a lot of other things, sound effects, music cues, whatever. Everything has to have, you know, proper paperwork, and it's the best if you do these all before you even start shooting. I know that, you know, productions can, you know, people can change within the production, people can come in last minute, or we just had that with the feature film, that our sound designer basically joined the film for the last 2 months of the production. So even Hollywood productions get delayed, and plans don't work out as they're supposed to, but it's the best thing to have everything in order way before the shooting even starts, and so everybody knows what they're getting out of it, and everybody knows what they can expect, and just make a fair deal with everybody and put it in writing. Because if you have it in writing, then it's a lot easier to you know, get anything done. I mean, you can send your film to film festivals, or even upload it to YouTube to watch people for free if you don't have these kind of contracts and agreements, but for sure you cannot get it distributed, which is like a very important thing. If you already put in a lot of energy and time and money into a feature film, then you better have it distributed. So these are the main things that I think that you should be like selective and careful about. And I'm not going to make these again, because I learned the hard way. I lost a lot of time, energy, money, and some of my projects haven't been completed, or they haven't been as good or as interesting as I wanted them to be. So I paid the price, but I learned my lesson, and I hope I helped you with it as well. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.